Last week, I talked about how the DC Comics character Spoiler got the short end of the stick in the comics she was featured in, and the trajectory I would have rather seen her character take in lieu of what they gave her. So today, I want to talk about Cassandra Cain, another Bat Lady who was poorly handled. Not as bad as Spoiler, but not great. Cassie Cain was introduced in the No Man's Land crossover as the daughter of Hitman David Cain. She was mute because her father wanted her to use the language center of her brain for fighting techniques instead of speaking. Nonsense, yes, but she's a pretty cool character, so I let it slide. After No Man's Land started to wind down, with the blessing of the original Batgirl Barbara Gordon, Cassie inherited the mantle and got her own solo comic. This went on until 2006, when DC Comics was in the middle of a couple of their Things Will Never Be the Same summer blockbuster crossover events. At this time, the Secret Society of Supervillains dropped Chemo, a very large man made out of toxic chemicals, onto Bloodhaven, the city Batgirl had made her home, while she was out of the city trying to find the identity of her biological mother. Thus ended Batgirl's solo series. Following this, DC Comics instituted a one-year jump into the future in just about every comic they were publishing, and in the Robin series, Robin discovers Cassie is now the loquacious leader of the League of Assassins. Less than a year later, in the Teen Titans series, we find out that while Batman, Nightwing, and Robin left Gotham City and left Harvey Dent to protect the city, Cassie felt sad, and Deathstroke managed to inject her with some kind of evil chemical that made her this way. Fortunately, Robin somehow injects her with the counter chemical, and now she's back to normal. I say this with love because Cassie Cain might be my favorite member of the Bat family behind Batman. Heck, sometimes I like her more than Batman. But the dark Cassandra Cain storyline was a train wreck. I assume sales were down on the solo Bat title, which is why it got the axe during Infinite Crisis. And with most of the series at DC Comics getting revamped with new premises during the 1 year later thing, I guess someone said Batgirl needed to go from quiet, efficient fighting machine to a talkative leader of a group of killers, even though her whole thing in her solo series was atonement for the killing that she did when she was with her father. Now, you might smell a whiff of hypocrisy here, since just last week I mentioned that I would have been interested in an actual exploration of the premise of the War Games storyline, where Batman planned to take control of the gangs of Gotham City and eliminate crime across the city. Why am I okay with Batman temporarily becoming basically a supervillain, but I'm not okay with Batgirl doing that? For one, in my imagined War Games type story where Batman unifies the gangs, he isn't killing people. He is ruthless and much more violent than he's ever been before, but he still doesn't cross that line, because we want him to be redeemable after this story is finished. Batgirl is killing people left and right. She's hired to kill Supergirl. She frames Robin for murder. She kills her own people. And someone must have realized this whole story conceptually was a bad idea, so they backtrack and say it wasn't her fault. She was under the chemical control of Deathstroke. But I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. If Deathstroke drugs her, why does she run off and become the leader of the League of Assassins? As far as I know, he's never been affiliated with them. If his plan was to form an evil team of Teen Titans to fight the heroic team, which is what he's doing when we find out he drugged Cassandra, then how does Cassandra joining the League fit into that? But also, Batman going down this slippery slope just feels more natural to me than it happening to any of the other members of the Bat family. There's all that bad stuff I mentioned last week that Bruce has suffered through. Dead and crippled sidekicks, plagues and earthquakes besieging his city, that sort of thing. And sure, some of that affects his extended family too, but I don't see that stuff pushing Cassie over the edge like I could see it with Bruce. She didn't even know Barbara when she was crippled, she never knew Jason as anything but an unrepentant anus, and she wasn't even living in Gotham during the Contagion storyline. I guess what I'm saying here is that what's good enough for the goose isn't necessarily good enough for the gander. Now, if you absolutely had to do a dark Batgirl story, I think there's a way that it could have been done better than what we got. I don't think I wanted a dark Batgirl story, but if you had to do it, here's what I would do. Batman, Nightwing, and Robin all leave Gotham during the missing year, but instead of leaving the city in the hands of Harvey Dent, a man who, until recently, was very unstable and was literally just as likely to kill you as turn himself in, I would say that Batman leaves Cassie, and maybe even the Birds of Prey, in charge of the city. You can still do the reformed Harvey thing that was a holdover from the Hush storyline if you want, but that wasn't really something I was into, so it wouldn't factor into this story. So Batgirl is watching over Gotham. She has help from the Birds when she really needs it, but while Barbara is headquartered in Gotham, the Birds aren't just Gotham-based, I don't think. They can and do stuff in other cities sometimes, or at least I would say that they do, to hammer home just how alone Cassie is during this time. And she just found out her mom was Lady Shiva right before the 1 year later stuff, so instead of Lady Shiva inexplicably joining the Birds of Prey at this time, maybe she is still with the League of Assassins, and offers Batgirl help in policing the city. Batgirl says no, and somehow figures out that the League has plans for Gotham anyway, now that Batman is gone, and they figure nobody can stop them. Maybe Shiva wants to ensure Batgirl doesn't try to stop them, and that's why she offers her a chance to join them, or maybe she thinks they stand an even better chance at victory with Batgirl at their side. side. Or maybe she has some twisted sense of love for her daughter. In any case, Cassie tries to investigate what the League is up to in Gotham. She finds some evidence like the mayor is somehow involved, but she's not the detective, so desperate to keep whatever the League is up to from happening, and maybe gathers some hard evidence to expose the mayor's involvement in whatever the League is doing, she comes back to Shiva and says, yes, I will join you. That would be when Batman, Nightwing, and Robin return to Gotham. Cassie has embedded herself in the ranks of the enemy to try to take them down from within, but they don't know that, and she can't communicate that to them. Since Cassie no longer had her own series by this point, this could all still play out from this point in the Robin series, but instead of Cassie gleefully killing people, she disarms without killing, even with Shiva displeased that she won't fully commit to what they are doing. Eventually, this would all get sorted out, and the returning heroes realize that she isn't really a bad guy. This would tickle the fancy of whoever it was who suggested Batgirl become a supervillain, and it could last about as long as she actually was one in the comics we got. But this would still only be a temporary solution on what to do with her now that she didn't have her own solo series. Gail Simone had talked about an idea she had when she was asked what she would do with the character in the 1 Year Later era. She said this was not a pitch necessarily, but just an editor getting her thoughts on what could have been done. She suggested Batgirl could convert to Christianity and be called the Angel of the Bat. Now, I do appreciate Simone suggesting that this be played seriously and not as a joke or a dig at Christianity, since there aren't that many comic book characters with any kind of religious beliefs. You have characters of the Jewish faith like Kitty Pryde and Ben Grimm, but it seems to me creators often forget that aspect of who they are. Other than Daredevil, I can't think of any characters with any kind of religious beliefs. So if this was handled with respect and care, I think this could have been an interesting direction. But I don't think other creators would have handled this with respect and care. I don't think Simone would have stayed on the title indefinitely, so whoever followed in her footsteps would have either bungled this concept and driven it into the ground, or they would have regressed her back into the pre-Christian version. So much as I think this would have been interesting to see, I don't think this would have worked in the long term. Let's assume in this hypothetical world where Batgirl does not become an axe-crazy supervillain, that she still loses her title in the 1 Year Later era. What do you do with her in the long term? You could do the sleeper trying to uncover corruption story I suggested, or skip it completely and jump straight into one of the following suggestions for what to do with her character. She could have replaced Nightwing in the Outsider series. In the 1 Year Later skip, he was still leading the team, but he still had his own series, and since she lost hers, she could be the representative of the Bat family in that series, while he could be doing his own thing. I would not have her be the leader, though, because she doesn't really strike me as the leader type, so this would be a chance to do something different with the series, which is good since most of the series in 1 Year Later were trying to do that. You could have Arsenal become the leader if he was still on the team, or you could have Black Lightning or Katana become the leader, since both of them had long histories with the team. Katana more so than this version of Black Lightning. But either way, Batgirl herself was always a bit of an outsider with the Bat family, so her joining an entire team of outsiders would have been great. On the same token, she could have joined the Teen Titans. Much like Nightwing, Robin still had his own ongoing series at the time, so you could have gotten rid of him if you didn't want too much Bat flavor in the Teen Titans series. This would have only left Cyborg and Cassie Sandmark, Wonder Girl, as the only remaining members of the team since the first issue of this iteration of the title. With Cyborg being in a coma during the entire missing year, you could have Wonder Girl leading a team of new members, including Batgirl, trying to keep the Titans thing going and struggling with it. This would be a fine way of exploring Wonder Girl feeling like she doesn't measure up to Wonder Woman, who is a natural leader. And there was already a little bit of Ares trying to play her against Wonder Woman in the pre-Infinite Crisis issues, so that would work great. And Batgirl could be Wonder Girl's rock, being dependable and sticking with the team during the missing year, while other members came and went with frequency. And you could say Batgirl felt like the other members of the Bat family didn't trust her after she infiltrated the League of Assassins, even though they say they understand why she did what she did. So you could have a friendship between the two Cassies. Or lastly, she could have joined the Birds of Prey. I've always seen that book as a Bat-adjacent series, with Huntress and Oracle both being pretty heavily involved with the Bat books through the years. And shortly after the 1 Year Later era began, Gail Simone changed up the team lineup and added a few new characters while getting rid of Black Canary. Now, I don't know for sure, but maybe Simone was trying to get the book a little further away from the shadow of the Bat, so to speak. Or maybe this was mandated from on high. All the books are changing a little, you need to shake up the team dynamic. If it was the latter, I see no reason why Cassie couldn't join the team. We already know Barbara had a bond with Cassie as far back as when Cassie was first introduced, but it'd be interesting to see Black Canary interact with Cassie. I remember, I think in the Green Arrow story The Longbow Hunters, Dinah told Ollie she never planned on having kids, even though she loved children. So if she is naturally kind of motherly, and Cassie wasn't even a teenager at this time, I don't think, then it would be neat seeing Canary try to mother Cassie. But Cassie is kind of closed off, since her two actual parents are both human monsters, and her surrogate father left her for a year, so she isn't really ready to open up to another paternal figure. I think any three of these options would have been preferable to the character assassination she went through at this time. I get that 1 year later gave every every series a chance to draw in new readers with a sense of, you'll never believe how different things are. But since Batgirl lost her own series, there was no real reason to throw her under the bus like this. Robin is wanted for murder. That's your hook in the 1 year later Robin series. Okay, have Lady Shiva be the one who framed him. She has something of a history with him. No need to completely revamp a pretty great character for the worse. That's about it for today. What did you guys think of this one? Like it? Hate it? I can't see why you would hate it, but if you did, let me know in the comments. And I do these kinds of videos once a week, so check back in a week to see what else I'll be doing a fix on. I don't even know what it'll be myself. And I do other videos, different but also good, so check them out while you wait. Until next time, have a good one.